finally write a coherent and clear literature review chapter. So with literature review, basically you're looking at what is known and what is not known about a given research topic. Okay, so you look at um, a given research topic and see what is clearly understood, and that is basically the agreements, and what are the areas where you don't have consensus agreement. Okay, so you have disagreements there. And then you also look at which areas, um, what are the themes that are being generated by the different researches that have been done in your research area of interest. And then you look at the limitations and the gaps in knowledge, what you call the research gaps. What we call the research gaps can be gaps in knowledge, can be gaps in practice, can be a gap between knowledge and practice. It can be a gap in evidence. Okay, so we have different types of gaps in research. So literature review helps you to identify those gaps. And then literature review helps you to fine-tune your research topic, your research questions, your research methodology, and even the study participants that you want to really investigate. Okay, so you'll have your topic, and then you have a dimension that you think this topic should take. But as you do your literature review, you may find out that actually there are no gaps in that area that you had really focused on, and then you actually identify another area that you can direct your research towards. Okay, so basically the literature review helps to identify what has been done in an area, um, what are the weaknesses with what has been done, and what are the strengths with what has been done, and then where your research now fits in, especially in filling that gap. Okay, so your literature review should also demonstrate that you actually understand the topic that you're discussing or that you're actually researching about, and the overall research significance. Okay, so I want to get one thing out of the table, and that thing is what we call a systematic literature review. This is actually a type of research. It's a type of research. If you remember the hierarchy of evidence that we talked about in epidemiology, where we say that uh, different studies can give you different levels of evidence. Okay, and at the topmost level of evidence that you can ever get is what you call meta-analysis, and then followed by systematic reviews. So systematic reviews, which are basically called the systematic literature review, is a type of research study where you collect or you review and evaluate different research studies that have been done on a particular topic, and then come up with a synthesis of all these studies that you have done, that you have analyzed and evaluated. Then that can be used to inform whether a policy or practice, whatever it is. So basically, a systematic review, you don't necessarily go and conduct the studies yourself, but you look at what other people have done about your research topic, then look at have what you call a research protocol, You can call it a literature search protocol, okay? Or you can call it a predetermined protocol or methodology on how you're going to look for those articles, okay? For example, you want to look at, let us say, hand washing habits in in refugee settings. Your um, your study, this systematic review, will look at all the different studies that have been done on hand washing amongst refugees in different settings. But of course, you will have areas where you think that, okay, if a study has meets the following criteria, and then I'll include it, I'll evaluate it, and then overall you look at all the studies and then come up with the synthesis of what your findings are, what you have obtained, and then you can use what you have obtained to inform policies on practice. Um, the other thing that we have, how do you conduct this literature review? This literature review uh, depends. Actually, you first need to understand your research topic, and then from your research topic, that's when you're going to look for the terms that you're going to search in the different literature database or databases that you intend to use, or the different search engines that you will use. So the first step is, what are the key search terms that you're going to use? The second step is, what search tools are you going to use? So this is where you come to the database. You're going to access the database through what we call search engines. Okay, so if you're going to search through, you're going to look for research articles on Google Scholar. Of course, you'll use Google. You can use Google, or you can use any other browser that can connect directly to Google Scholar. And then you can use databases. You have PubMed as one of the databases that you can use for health-related articles. You can also use Inari, which we explained that we have access to Inari, where you can also access primary sources. We shall look at what primary sources are. Okay, so identify the tools that you're going to use. You can also access databases that are owned by countries. For example, if the National Ministry of Health or South Sudan had a database for different research articles that have been produced, you could use the Ministry of Health database for all the researches that are conducted in South Sudan. At the moment, we don't have them. We also have the South Sudan Medical Journal. We also have some researches there. So you need to first identify what tools and resources you are going to use. And then when we talk about the word filters, this is to say that, you see, your search can be very disorganized if you don't use what we call filters. Filters allow you to select, let us say you want the articles that are about 5 years ago. You don't want to get an article of 1980. You want to get new articles. You want to get articles that are maybe containing certain keywords, whatever it is. So you need to have those filters. So those are basically settings that allow you to purify your search. And then point number 3 is you select the final set of sources. Okay, so after identifying whether it is PubMed, whether it is Inari, whether it is any other journal that you have subscription to, or what we call open source journals. Open source journals are those that you don't really need to make subscriptions, but you can easily access the resources or the research articles on that journal. Okay, so you select those sources. Of course, we have journals that are specific to particular fields. Journals of nutrition, journals of healthcare management, journals of public health. So that's why you need to select which journals are you going to look at. And then we have those that basically have almost anything related to health, like Hinari. And then after selecting the different sources that you're going to use, of course, you need to read through and see if they really meet your what you're looking for. You get an article, the title looks okay, but when you read the abstract, it doesn't really match with what you're looking for. So you discard it and then move to the next source. So you keep selecting what you need and then discard what you don't want. Okay, and then come up with a list of those resources that you really think are matching your topic. So that is summary. You need to summarize. Have a table. Draw the author. Have the author. Have the year of publication, the topic, how the research was done, and things like that. And what are the key remarks that you really got from that article? So for each article, you need to have that list. So you need to have a table that summarizes the key resources that you're going to include in your literature review. Okay. The next thing is now you can write, because you now have an understanding of the literature about your research topic. Now you can start writing. And then after in writing, then you can later on do the editing and also polish your work so that it looks quite well. So that is basically the general landscape of how you can do literature review. So we are going to go into the key things that you really need to note going forward. So where do you get your sources from? We have primary sources where you basically look for what people have done. The research articles of um, that have actually investigated and collected the data themselves. Okay, this is what we mean by primary source. Is that you have a research article or any other report or dissertation that is based on data that they have really collected themselves. It's not based on another person's data that they have really want, uh, that they have really used to write their reports. So that is primary sources. So you move to the second one, which is secondary sources. This one, you look at the secondary sources are those that rely on other people's work. So we can say that they rely on maybe again tertiary or even secondary, but they don't use their own data sets. It's, for example, me saying writing in my let us say assignment, and then I say the prevalence of malnutrition, acute malnutrition amongst children under 5 in South Sudan is 5%. So that is my report that I've written. And then you come and read that report. What you have read from is not a primary source, because I did not go and count or did not carry out the study that determined that the prevalence of acute malnutrition among children under 5 in South Sudan is 5%. It's not me. Okay, so if you look at other people's work to come up with your work, that is what you call secondary sources. And then tertiary sources, things like the dictionaries, the handbooks, the encyclopedia, they generally provide general information about anything that you're interested in. And then we move to what I'm calling the gray literature. Gray literature, this is where you have reports, narrative reports, whatever nature of report that you can talk about. It can even be a dissertation, but this dissertation has not been published in an academic journal. Okay, they have not been published in an academic journal. Okay, but they also contain information that could be relevant. They can be technical reports, they can be working papers, it can be a dissertation, a thesis, it can be a conference paper. Okay, so for example, in the context of South Sudan, where we don't have a lot of academic research going on and being published, because if you do research, the next thing after that is to make sure that the research article gets published in a reputable journal. But much of our research in South Sudan is not really published in reputable research journals. So therefore, we have a lot of research that is unpublished. NGOs do research. They do research, but you can't really find them these research articles in our journals around in South Sudan. Just like the example I've given you is that we have something that is close to maybe a journal, the South Sudan Medical Journal, but still it is not very active. We don't have a lot of research articles being produced there. And also the level of scrutiny of the research articles submitted to South Sudan Medical Journal is still low. Okay, so that means that in our context, we might have to rely a lot on what we call gray literature. Um, so this can include reports by NGOs on their projects that they are doing, on their research articles that they have published and things like that. So if you're looking at a particular topic, you should know which organizations are handling that area such that you can get good information about that research topic in your country. So, for example, UNFPA deals a lot with reproductive health. So you could really note in your mind that issues to do with teenage pregnancies, respectful maternal care, issues to do with reproductive health commodities, all the things available on the UNFPA websites. And we have different reports on this UNFPA website related to reproductive health. So that means that the topic that you chose should know the, the related sources of information in the gray literature. Okay, so I really don't. I usually tell students that, as most of you complain that you see there is no research on South Sudan about a given topic. No, it's only that you don't know how to really look for this information. So this gray literature can also be called the non-academic resources, okay, or sources. They can include newspapers, they can include magazine, textbooks, and the rest. So government reports, most of our government ministries are still building their websites. We have a few, for example, if you go to the Ministry of Health website of South Sudan, you'll get information there. Okay, you'll get information on disease surveillance issues, disease surveillance. You get information on different reports and the rest. Okay, so you need to know that you can get good literature from government websites or government sources or even databases. You will have, if of course we are still developing in terms of uh, digital technologies, but one of the things, of course, that we really need to do is to make sure that every ministry has a website and every research is actually published, whether in the research or academic journals or even in different databases. So I've mentioned about the different sources of information you can get from the academic sources, that is through the journals, peer-reviewed journals. You can get from the database. You can get from basically searching through any search engine or even gray literature. What is the best source of information for your literature review? It's one, primary sources. primary sources are the best. But that does not mean that you cannot use secondary sources. You can also still use secondary sources. Of course, like I said, in the hierarchy of evidence, the, the, the highest level sawemu. Nini samu itoyagala girinda. All right, so let's basically continue. I had to pick that call. It was really, it was disrupting me. I guess you can hear me loud and clear, right? Can someone confirm that you can hear me right, loud and clear? The primary sources of literature. Now, what we call empirical peer-reviewed journal articles is what we basically recommend for you to use. Why? Because if you conduct your research, for example, you do factors associated with acute malnutrition among children under 5 in Tone County. That is your study. You collect your data, and then you have your report, and then maybe you submit it to South Sudan Medical Journal, and then they publish it. No, that is not a peer-reviewed article. A peer-reviewed article is where you conduct this research, okay? You write your report, you submit it for what you call peer review. With the peer review, you get 3 experts, at least 3 research experts to look at your work, provide you with feedback, okay? Provide you with feedback, and then you can make amends, or they can actually reject your paper. And then say, no, this does not meet the research rigor required for this article to be published in our journal. So that is what you call a peer-reviewed journal article. Okay? When you do your research, you write your report, you submit it to the journal article, to a journal. Okay? And then the journal will select experts to review your paper, your research work. And then they can either accept or reject. Or they can give you recommendations on how you can modify the article that you have written, and then they can later on accept. This is very important because it provides high quality research contribution. Okay? Because it has been looked through by experts. Okay, so that paper, how does it look like? It will have the introduction, it will have the literature review methodology findings, the discussion conclusion, basically the recommendations, and the list of references. This is basic. This is basically what our research will look like. It should have all those sections. So having an article that has been peer reviewed and published in a research journal is time consuming, but it is also highly rewarding. Those of you who may want to have a career in the academia, one of the things that they will judge whether you're really making an impact or not is whether you have articles that have been published. If you do researches around, if a university is looking for a lecturer, one of the things they will look at is in the last 5 years, how many peer-reviewed articles have you published? If you have not, then you're not fit to be a lecturer. So it is one of the criteria for recruitment of lecturers, and also people become associate professors or even professors. Not like someone waking up one day, and we have a lot of them in South Sudan. Someone wakes up one day and they are called a professor. So, like, okay, you're a professor. You try to look for their work and you can't find them anyway. So, how did you become a professor? Okay, so you need to have peer reviewed articles like that. Your ratings can improve. Universities are actually rated uh, based on research output. Okay, based on research output. So we have what we call the global rankings of universities. Okay, so universities are ranked. Which one is number two, number one, then and the rest. It doesn't only depend on teaching, also on research output. And in Africa, at least I think the first 10 for the last few years, about 5 years, the first 9 universities are in South Africa, and then followed with some universities either in Uganda, that is basically Makerere, or either Egypt. And basically those rankings are related to research and innovation. And then we have what you call theoretical journal articles. These ones evaluate theories. Okay, they have theories on different phenomena or behavior. So they are used for evaluating these different theories. They are also peer reviewed and scrutinized during the review process. Okay, so literature review journal articles present, synthesize, and organize existing knowledge on a particular topic. So they play an important role in helping you to construct your literature review. So you need to know the journals that you have to use. If you're a public health person, um, which public health journals do you know? Most of you complain on, on having access to some of these journals that require subscription. But you are not aware of those that do not require subscription. I, I don't know whether you understand that. For you to complain about something that requires subscription, you should know something that doesn't require subscription. It's just like when you're going to enter into a stadium where they are playing football. You have many gates. There is one gate that is for free. There is another one that is for 5,000 SSP. And then for you reach at the gate for 5,000, then you complain there, as if you don't know that there is another gate where you can enter into the same stadium at free. So you need to first know the open source public health journals, open source nutrition journals, open source healthcare management journals. If you have exhausted them and you have known the weaknesses of each, then that's when you can complain about one where you have to make payments. Okay, and therefore, when you make that judgment, you actually make it with a valid reason. Okay, there is always a fallacy. It's a belief which is the wrong one, that something that you pay for is better than something that you don't pay for. It's a fallacy because you have not really understood the one that is provided for free for you to make a comparison with something that has been that you're going to pay for. Okay, so first know that. So usually something can be priced highly, yet there is no value in it. And then you can have something that has value and is for free, but people don't go for it because they have that mind that something for free is not good. Okay, so where to find these resources? I said use search engines, use databases. I've provided you examples. PubMed, Hinari, use Google Scholar, and many other open source journals that you can really use. Now, we have what we call Boolean operators and filters. Now, when you're searching Google, for example, and I'm not sure if most of you know this, searching Google, if you don't know how to search Google, you will not get what you want. If you know how to use Google, then you get what you want. So the use of Boolean operators is one of the techniques that can allow you to get exactly what you want. So what are Boolean operators? These are the and, or, and not. These the things that are put in capital letters. So if you're searching, you need to know that sometimes the words that you're searching for are actually used in a different sense. And then you miss an article just because your words that you have used to search are not okay. So for example, we have the program healthcare management. In other institutions, it is called health systems management. In other institutions, it can be called uh, hospital administration and management. But really, the content is almost similar. And therefore, if you're searching for information on a program called healthcare management, and that's the only word you're using, you're missing out other important search articles that are related to that program. So you need to know how to use and, or, and not. So let's give you an example here. So you're having a study, or you're investigating the relationship between cancer and smoking. So how do you search it? When you just say cancer and smoking, you may get results, but may not really bring out you the articles that you want. But when you add this and in the middle, it means that it's going to bring you all the research articles that have the word smoking and lung cancer in it. Okay? So that's the first example of how you can use and as one of the Boolean operators. Now, you may want to broaden your search to include articles that mention either smoking or lung cancer. Okay? So that means that you want the net to be wider. If you use smoking and lung cancer, your net is small. If you say smoking or lung cancer, it brings you all the articles that have the word smoking and have the words lung cancer. That is the O, which is OR. You need to use these Boolean operators in capital, just like the way you see them in your search. If you're searching, whether it is in a database, whether it is basically a simple Google search, okay, whether you're searching in PubMed, whatever it is, if you use these Boolean operators very well, you always get good quality results. And then sometimes you want to eliminate a word that is associated to what you're searching. Okay, so you're searching for smoking and lung cancer, but you don't want anything to do with lung cancer survivors. And then you add these Boolean operators and not. So you're searching for the word smoking, but you don't want anything to do with the research article that has the word survivors in it. So those are Boolean what? Operators. So sometimes, for example, if you want to do a search on Google, you may be interested in searching for a certain word, but you want the information about that word to come from a specific source. So you can say, let us say you're searching for lung cancer treatment, but the article should come from, let us say, a government source. Then you can put the plus, and then the plus, or most cases you can put the dot, G or V, which is to represent a government. So when you do that search, you'll get information about lung cancer, but that information is written by a government agency. Okay, so you need to know how to use those things. Even in Google, you can use the minus You can use the plus sign, you can use the full stop or the period that I've illustrated, and things like that. Or sometimes if you want to search about lung cancer treatment, but you want the journal article to come from a source that is academic in nature, okay, that comes from a university, then you say lung cancer treatment, but you put a plus SC to mean the SC stands for academic. So for any university that has written about lung cancer treatment, you will have the searches actually coming on your page. Now, this is something that you also need to know. We have what you call predatory publishers and journals. You you have fake people almost everywhere. Like I said, universities are interested in lecturers who have ever published research work. If you have never published research work, they will not give you a job, they will not promote you. Actually, with some universities, every 3 years, they look at what research have you published. If you have not published, they will not give you another contract. You're performing below expectation. Now, certain people have seen that as an opportunity. You're a lecturer, you have not done serious work, but there is an opportunity that you can publish your work without us looking at it closely. Those are the ones we call predatory publishers and journals. So be careful. When we use the word reputable journal, it's a very key word, reputable journal. This is to say that they are journals that are basically there to make money. They charge you, your work is published, they have not peer reviewed it, they have not reviewed it, they have not made recommendations, they have not, their work, they just publish as long as you pay whatever it is. So be careful with that. So it is very important that you have quality work. Quality work comes from reputable journals that have been peer reviewed. If you base your literature review on work that is inaccurate, then you have the quality of your overall quality of your research will also be low. So make sure that you really get credible research articles that you can use in your research work. Otherwise, you'll have poor quality research. Wikipedia is one of the things that most of you will run to, but please avoid it as much as you can. Wikipedia, the funny thing, anyone, anywhere can edit it. You don't have to be an expert to want to write on any topic on Wikipedia. So please avoid it, okay? As simple as that. There was one time a given politician was very sick, and then someone went to his Wikipedia page and edited it that that person has died. Okay, so avoid it as much as you can. So be very cautious in what the sources that you're going to use. Avoid using the journals that have said, research articles that are from journals that are not reputable. Avoid issues to do with Wikipedia. And sometimes some research articles over exaggerate. We have misinformation and disinformation all over, or sometimes what you call fake news. So please cross-check the information that you have. Sometimes it's not the accurate one. So when you have done all these searches, you reach a point of saturation where there is nothing new that you collect that you can get from your literature search. So that's the point of saturation. So you stop there basically, and then organize your work. Key thing is, it's about quality versus the number of resources that you're going to cite. Okay. If you write your literature review with about 12 or 15 sources, high quality primary sources, why not? Other than having 40, where you're having Wikipedia, you're having the opinions, you're having all this that is really not founded, and you're having a lot of old research articles in your work. A topic that has been that is discussed often, it would be very prudent that you actually use resources that have been released in the last 5 years. But I see people writing as more than 10 years, 12 years, 15 years. What is that? That is too old. So make sure that you use the most recent work. If you go too much, 10 years, but really 5 years should be fine. Okay? So make sure that you collect the best research articles and then include them in your literature review. Read the abstract. The abstract is very important. It helps you to quickly scan the paper. If you know the types of reading, scanning or skimming, whatever it is, you don't want to read the entire research article for you to decide whether it is the one that you're going to include or not. You basically just need to read the abstract and then decide whether you need to read it further or not, whether you need to discard it. So that is the approach. Read the abstract. Create a summary table, which I already earlier on explained, the key things that you need to have. Highlight, or if you have got 15 or 20 years research articles that are of sound or high quality, then you can create that table and then move forward and then start writing your literature review. So that table is very, very key. How do you write now? How does your workflow? You don't start from anywhere. Be logical, be coherent. Okay? Depends on your topic. You can basically use the descriptive organization where basically you describe the key aspects of your topic. Okay? Or it can be chronological. If you're looking at historical research and you're looking at the events that are related to a given research topic and how they have been flowing. That is the organization that you may take. Okay. So each of those, whether descriptive, whether chronological, they have different advantages. If you're going to use descriptive, it means that you really need to describe the problem, how it is actually happening. For example, if malnutrition, then you're going to basically give information about malnutrition, how it happens, and things like that. Chronological, you basically focus on how events have been changing over time. Okay, so or this can also be looked at in terms of how events have been changing over time or how theories have been changing over time. For example, those of you who have studied management, you know that the theories of management have been changing over time. They have not always been the same. So if you're going to look at the managerial practices, whatever, you may need to use the chronological approach where you describe how a given phenomena or even theory has evolved over time. So one strategy that you can use was what we call the mill, where you really need to state the main point, the evidence for it, and then the analysis and linking it to maybe to your research, maybe linking it to the next sentence or the next paragraph, or linking it to the subsequent study, whatever it is. Okay, what's the main point? What's the evidence for it? And then the analysis, who does it affect? How does it affect? How is it connected? And then the linking. That's an approach that you can really use in writing each of your paragraphs in the literature review. What's the main point that you're communicating? This can basically be what you call the topical sentence that you studied in your first year of orientation. So write a draft, okay? Have a draft of your work, okay? Don't write as if it is a final copy. Have a logical structure of your research work. Then this rough structure and organization can get approved. For example, I've seen students who send me the whole literature review and you have nowhere to start. Okay, because the first thing that you have to agree on is the structure of your work. And which topics are you going to have, or which subheadings are you going to have? How are they going to flow? How are they going to be connected to one another? That is the structure and organization. and then write them down, okay, and then send them for approval. It is better for it to be approved at that stage than you writing 5 pages of literature review and then I say, no, you have written something bad. So please, that is very, very important. After that, you can proofread, edit, and polish. The things that the mistakes that you make, the common pitfalls, you don't have enough time. You have not spent enough time doing the literature review. And then you want to finish it there and then. Okay. Some people focus on the authors other than the themes of the study that you're looking. Lack of organization, which I've just explained. If you overuse direct quotations, you make reading very hard, what we call unreadable. Okay, your work should flow. You should use quotations sparingly. Okay, there are certain words that you really need to avoid. Personal pronouns, I, the word prove, things like that. Make sure that you avoid using them. Okay, so make sure that your literature review has a strong base that is linked to your research that you're actually doing. So in your last 3 paragraphs of your literature review, there should be a strong linkage to your research methodology, research questions, and how this topic, how your topic will actually be handled. Okay, so there should be an element of justification for why you are actually doing the research. Okay, if you fail to justify your proposed research through your literature review, then you have done injustice to yourself. Okay, the things that ethical issues that can happen in literature review, plagiarism is one. Two is that misinforming people about other people's research. Okay, that is misinterpreting what other people have done. So you don't portray what other people's research actually portrayed. Okay, so avoid plagiarism is one of the songs that we have. Make sure that you don't steal people's work and think that it is something okay. Some people just copy people's work. There's also what you call self-plagiarism. Okay, you can plagiarize your own work. I don't know if you're aware about that. So if you're the one who actually did the research work, you really need to provide the citation for it. That is, if you don't do that, then that is self-plagiarism. Sometimes people just replace words with other words that have similar meaning, and then they say this is original work. That is plagiarism still. So make sure that you really avoid plagiarism and make sure that you use the right citation, and make sure that if you're using a quotation, use the appropriate punctuation marks and things like that. If you plagiarize, it is a dishonesty, it is lack of integrity. Okay, so make sure that you really follow the rules of writing your work properly. Okay, and then inaccurate portrayal of existing research is when you misrepresent research articles. Okay, instead of you reading and then understanding the research, you basically rely on summaries and then you portray the whole research article in a different way. Okay, so make sure that you really read to understand and comprehend the information before you really portray it in a way that is not appropriate. So that marks the end of this presentation.